Chapter 2. There is much debate in this country over abortion. I have always found it puzzling. There are the right-to-lifers who say that abortion is the equivalent of murder. Then there are those who say women's right is free choice that must be preserved. What has always struck me as odd is that each side is convinced that only it is right and the other is wrong. I feel they are both wrong. No one should take away another person's right to choose, and no one should kill an unborn infant. Of course, I could just as easily say both sides are right, but I won't. It's a paradox that can't be resolved. I think it is better to admit that than pretend there is a resolution. But most people want to believe what they are doing is right. I guess I have always been unique in that respect. I knew smoking dope was a lousy thing to do, but I did it anyway. I knew I should study more, but I couldn't be bothered. I goofed off and got loaded because I wanted to, and that was reason enough. Yet it wasn't as if I had no conscience. These things only hurt me, and I was willing to do them because I could take the hurt. I almost preferred it. Now, though, I had a baby in me. The baby could hurt me. It could drive my boyfriend away. It could make me work and slave for the next 18 years. I could hurt it. I could kill it. But Dr. Adams assured me it would be a painless death. Without consciousness, there could be no agony, and the doctor said that an immature fetus had zero awareness. I believed him. Dr. Adams made the appointment for me at the family planning clinic on Sunday in Foster. Because he had already completed all the necessary tests, it was not required that I come in beforehand. All I had to do was show up for the procedure. The time was set for 5:30 in the morning. Apparently, the surgeons like to get rid of nasty business early so they could spend the rest of the day saving lives. The cost for the abortion would be $462. The clinic wanted to be paid up front. Pepper insisted on covering it all, but I said no, we'd split it. I only had $300 in the bank to begin with. Condoms would have been cheaper. A heart transplant would have been easier. All my talk was just talk. As we drove to Foster the night before, Friday, I felt like I was driving to my death. We decided to get a motel in Foster and sleep, but we ended up talking till it was time to go to the clinic. My dad was out of town, and Pepper's aunt and uncle thought he was camping with a friend. The clinic was located in a small professional office building. It was still dark as we parked my car and walked inside. A plump, middle-aged woman looked up from behind a gray metal desk. She must have been a nurse. She was all in white. A mole the size of a quarter, complete with fine brown hairs, occupied the left side of her generous chin. There were no other women present. "Are you Roxanne?" the woman asked. "Yes. Are we early?" The place was plainly furnished and smelled of alcohol. "A few minutes." The woman was all business. She reached for a handful of forms. "Fill these out, please. Will you be paying with cash or check?" "I'll just put it on my expense account," I said. "Pardon?" the woman said. She had heard me, but didn't like my sense of humor. "Cash," Pepper said sourly, reaching for his wallet. I knew neither of us had imagined we'd be spending our hard-earned money this way. I filled out the forms. I had the wild thought in the middle of them that one day I would run for president, and that the forms would be dug up by my opponent and used to smear my good name. So I changed a few things about myself, including the spelling of my last name and where I lived and so on. I mean, it wasn't as if I wanted to receive the clinic's monthly newsletter. Pepper sat silently beside me as I wrote. If it had been him who was filling out the forms, then I would have probably helped him. He did worse in school than I did. Our child probably would have been retarded, I consoled myself, as I finished the papers and gave them back to the mean woman. I was talking to myself a mile a minute, the whole rationalizing trip, but I spoke like someone who was listening to me. The baby, of course, I imagined she could hear my mental dialogue. And although she remained silent throughout, I had a sense of how she felt, and the feeling was not pleasant. A man suddenly appeared in the doorway. He was dressed in a sterile green gown, serious and intimidating. He was over 6.5 feet tall, and seated as I was, his covered head looked like something in orbit. He glanced briefly at me before his eyes moved to the woman behind the desk. "I'm ready for our first patient, Carol," he said. Then he closed the door and was gone. The woman lumbered up from behind her desk. "Come this way," she said. I stood, Pepper with me. We hugged each other briefly. "It'll all be over before you know it," he said. "I know." I pressed my mouth to his ear, whispering. "Love you." "Rox," he began. "Best we hurry," the woman interrupted. I let go of Pepper. "Goodbye," I said. "I'll be right here when you come out," he promised. We entered a different door from the one the doctor had disappeared behind. The smell of alcohol thickened. The clinic was small. A few steps and we were in the operating room. The woman handed me a green gown and told me to undress completely and lie on the table with my feet in the stirrups. I could not believe this was happening. The woman left the room, and I began to unbutton my blouse. What a way to begin a relationship, I thought. I was lying on the table with my legs crossed when the doctor entered the room a few minutes later. I wanted to tell him that the table was making my bare butt cold. I also wanted to tell him that I was basically a good person, who had made a mistake and that I didn't mean anybody any harm, particularly to the many tiny babies of the world. But I didn't say anything. He gently took hold of my feet and placed them in the stirrups. "I'm going to give you a series of shots, Roxanne," he said. "It will numb the area." "Will they hurt?" I asked. "Yes, but only for a moment. I like an honest doctor." He reached for a packet on a nearby shelf and opened it. There was a long needle inside and a small bottle of clear liquid next to it. He stabbed the needle into the top of the bottle and slowly filled the syringe, holding it up to the light. It looked like Excalibur, I thought, and he was going to stick it into me. "Jesus," I whispered. "Don't be afraid," he said. I chuckled. It was more fun getting into this predicament than it is getting out of it. He smiled at my comment, but only for a moment. He wasn't a bad man, but I was just another girl in trouble to him. He probably saw hundreds a year, if not thousands. This was business to him, not a matter of life or death. It was only then I wondered if an abortion could be dangerous. I remembered one of the forms I signed had said something about not holding the clinic responsible in the event I croaked. He gave me the shots. They hurt like hell. My eyes were wet when he finished. Then he started an IV into my wrist and patted my arm and told me he would be back in 15 minutes. I could hear a girl in the adjacent room undressing. It did not make me feel any less lonely. The gown was drafty and the doctor had left the door open. I tried to pass the time by singing softly. People told me I had an incredible voice, but I didn't believe them. I always just sounded like myself. I quickly had to give up on the ploy. No one had written a getting ready for my abortion song. Time crept by. Deep inside, I felt things going numb. The doctor finally returned and poked at me with glove-covered fingers. I told him I couldn't feel a thing, and this made him happy. He was ready to begin the procedure. He picked up a long, silver instrument that glinted in the harsh overhead light. I closed my eyes. He poked me again, and then suddenly muttered something under his breath, and left the room in a hurry. I kept my eyes closed. My guts felt strange, as if they were made of liquid, and were flowing around inside me. My thoughts began to float inside my head, too, like colored pictures projected on puffy white clouds caught in a gentle updraft. I thought mainly of Salem, where I had grown up, and how bright the stars had been the night Pepper had first kissed me. But the thought of Betty Sue McCormick also flashed inside. Her face spread across my imaginary black sky. It was odd that Betty Sue should come to mind. I had hardly known her. Hers was a sad tale. She had doused herself with gasoline in an abandoned gas station at the edge of town, and then she dropped a flaming match at her feet. The whole place had gone up, and there hadn't been much left of Betty Sue to bury. No one knew why she had done it. Just the thought of Betty Sue, though, and how she had thrown away her life, got me thinking about my baby and what I was doing to it. My inner resolve to go ahead with the abortion suddenly turned over sharply inside me. Why was I doing this? Had I really asked myself that question? If I had forgotten the answer to it. Yeah, sure, Pepper wanted me to get rid of the kid, and I was worried about losing Pepper. But if he was going to leave me now for this reason, he would leave me later for another. I had nothing to lose, I thought, by keeping what was ours. I wanted to stop the procedure. I wanted to go home. "Doctor?" I called, opening my eyes. "Are you there?" No answer. I pulled my right leg out of the stirrup, then my left. I could sense that I was still numb inside, but believed I could walk. I didn't think I'd changed my mind too late. The doctor had only worked on me a few minutes before leaving. I could see no blood, and suddenly my sensation of dizziness vanished. I felt good, better, in fact, than I had since I found out I was pregnant. I swung my legs over the side of the table and stood up. I called out to the doctor and nurse again. Still no answer. The green gown was bugging me, so I pulled it off and quickly slipped back into my clothes. Then I stepped into the hallway. A dizzy sensation overtook me with a bang. As I looked down the hall, opposite the direction from which I had entered the operating room, the walls suddenly elongated, stretching the hall into what could have been a pathway into infinity. At the very end of the hall was blackness, nothingness. I shot out my right arm and caught the edge of the door frame with my hand. I passed the back of my hand over my eyes and steadied myself. My vision cleared. The length of the hallway shrunk to normal size. I turned and walked toward the reception area. Pepper jumped up as I came out. He had been reading a People magazine. The woman at the desk must have been in the back. We were alone. "Are you done already?" he asked. "Yes." "You weren't in there long." "I'm a quick fix." I opened the door to the outside. Faint blue light shone in the east. "Let's get out of here." Pepper hurried after me. "Are you sure you're all right?" "I'm perfect," I said, stepping outside into the cool morning air. "Give me the keys. I want to drive." "Rox, you can't. You just had an operation." I paused on the opposite side of the car from him. I didn't do it. "You didn't have the abortion?" he asked, shocked. "No, and I don't want to argue about it." "Rox?" I put up my hand. "I just want to go home, okay? Give me the keys." He tossed me the keys reluctantly. We climbed in the car and drove away. I half expected the ugly fat nurse to come bursting out of the clinic shouting for us to stop, but we left in silence. And the silence followed us. "I think we should talk about this," Pepper said softly. 5 minutes later, when we were on the outskirts of Foster. The town was twice the size of Salem, but that wasn't saying it was big. Soon, we would be in the desert. "I've decided to have the baby," I said calmly. "We can talk all you want. I think you're right. We should talk. But I'm not going to change my mind. If that's not all right with you, I understand. You won't have to be responsible for raising our daughter. If you don't pay child support, I won't take any kind of legal action against you. You'll be free to live your life exactly as you want." He stared at me for a while before responding. I couldn't see his expression. I could only glimpse him out of the corner of my eye. I had my eyes on the road. We seemed to be the only ones leaving Foster that morning. "How do you know it's a girl?" he asked again. I chuckled. "I'm not sure. I just know." "Nothing I say will make any difference?" "Nope." He sighed, settling himself in the seat as if he were about to take a nap. "Then I won't say anything, except that I'll see you through this." I glanced over at him. "That makes a difference," I said. Pepper nodded, and then fell asleep. Men, boys, they could sleep through the end of the world. Of course, we had been up the entire night before. I never knew Pepper snored. I thought it was cute. When the sun came up an hour later, Pepper was still asleep. The sun peeked over the horizon directly in front of me and burned bright into my brain. It was at that exact moment that I saw a hitchhiker at the side of the road about half a mile in front of us. It looked like a girl, but I couldn't have sworn to it. It might have been a guy with long, red hair, brighter than mine. The person had on a long, dark cape, but framed against the light of the sun, she was little more than a silhouette with flaming hair. I debated whether I'd pick her up. I usually did pick people up. I assumed the person was hitchhiking, but as I raised my hand to shield my eyes from the glare, she disappeared. There was a cluster of cactuses just off the road. I assumed she had seen us coming and ducked behind them. I wasn't going to worry about it. I had enough on my mind. I drove by the spot she had been standing without slowing one bit. An hour later, about 5 miles outside of Salem, I came to a familiar gas station. I glanced down at my gauge. I was on my last half-gallon. I decided to stop and fill up. Pulling into the station beside the pump, I reached over and shook Pepper gently. He hadn't stirred once since we left Foster. "Hey, sleepyhead," I said. "We're almost home." He opened his eyes and yawned. "What time is it?" "Almost 8. We need gas. Do you have any money?" He closed his eyes again. "The clinic has all my money." I got out. "Thanks." "Just stating the facts, miss." Like I said, I knew the station. It was always open. You could pump your gas before paying. I dug a mangled $5 bill out of my blue jeans. I wouldn't be filling up after all. Pepper was snoring again before I got my 4.3 gallons in the tank. I walked up to the window to pay. A faint breeze played with my hair. The sky was as blue as summer. I knew it was going to be a cooker of a day. There was no one at the window, although it was open. "Hello? Anyone home?" No answer. The garage doors were pulled down, but the cash register was lying open. That was odd, I thought. Even if the guy on duty had to go to the bathroom, he would have closed the cash register. Immediately I thought the place was being held up. The help was in the back with a bullet in the brain, and the villain was at this very moment returning for the cash. I backed away from the window 3 steps, then whirled around and ran for the car. "Pepper," I said quietly, "wake up. We have to get out of here." He didn't open his eyes or sit up. The car runs just as well with me asleep as it does with me awake. I opened the car door. I think this place is being held up. He bolted upright and glanced out the window. Why? I called and no one answered. The cash register's lying open. The guy could be in the bathroom. I climbed in the car. I don't think so. I have a bad feeling about this. I want to get out of here. I put the key in the ignition. Pepper put a hand on my arm. Wait a sec, he said. If the place is being held up, we should help. We can't help. Only people with loaded guns can help in situations like this. Let's go. No, Pepper said. That wouldn't be cool. I don't want to be cool. I want to be alive. Let go of my arm. He opened his door. You stay here. I'll be back in a moment. If you hear gunshots, drive off. I grabbed his arm. Oh, sure. Oh, great. What a classic macho attitude. You are coming with me. My daughter is not going to grow up without a father. It could be a boy, for Christ's sakes. He shook loose. Do as I say and don't worry. I won't worry, I said sarcastically, sitting back. I'll take these few moments to enjoy a peaceful meditation. He closed the door in my face. I pounded the dashboard. Damn it. I watched as he walked casually up to the window. One thing about Pepper, he was no coward. He peered in the window, listened for a second, and then walked around the side of the building to a door and disappeared inside. Why did I go to an abortion clinic and pay them $400? I just had to sit through a holdup and I'd abort. I clasped my hand over my abdomen and waited. I didn't start the car. If someone shot Pepper, I thought, they could shoot me as well. He was back a minute later. I was so relieved I almost started crying. There's no one here, he said. Are you sure? Positive. There's no one in the back. The bathroom's anywhere. Why would they just go off and leave the money lying around like that? Pepper was puzzled. I don't know. I handed him my $5 bill. Well, stick this in their cash register and let's get out of here. Pepper stuffed the money in his jeans pocket and climbed inside. Give me a break, he said. That's stealing. Yeah, well, turn me in when we get to town. You're mad at me, I said. I'm not mad at you. Then why don't you talk to me? I asked. Because you told me talking to you would be a waste of time. Then I went to sleep, and I don't talk in my sleep. You snore, though. I don't snore, he said. Yeah, you do. I don't mind. I know it's beyond your control. Thank you, Rox. Now, can we get out of here? This place is giving me the creeps. I paused. Why did you say that? Rox. No. I glanced at the deserted window again. There is something creepy about this place. Can you feel it? It's just because it's deserted, that's all. But why is it deserted? I told you, I don't know why. Please, let's go home. I started the car reluctantly. Okay. We drove into Salem. There was no one out. It was no big deal. It was still early, but it was odd. We went to Pepper's house. He climbed out of the car without giving me a goodbye kiss. What are your plans today? I asked him. I want to sleep some more. And after that, do you want to get together? I have the whole day free. I'd made sure I had the day off so I could recover from my operation. I was recovering all right. In 9 months, I would be fully healed. Sure, he said without enthusiasm. He turned away. Pepper? He stopped with his back to me. I told you, I understand. I'm sorry. He sighed and glanced over his shoulder. I hope we're not both sorry. Yeah, I agreed. I drove home. On the way, I noticed again how quiet the town was. There should have been someone on the road. I couldn't even hear a bird singing. Yeah, I noticed the silence, but it didn't make me wonder. I was more amazed at how wide awake I felt. It was a while since I'd slept. I parked in the driveway and went inside. Like I said, my dad was out of town. Yet the moment I stepped through the door, I was struck by how empty the house felt, as if no one had ever lived there. Dad? I called. Of course, no one answered. I think I just wanted to hear the sound of my voice. My jitters from the deserted gas station were still with me. I went into the kitchen and put on a pot of coffee. I drank a dozen cups a day. I would have to learn to cut down. The caffeine wouldn't be good for the baby. While waiting for the coffee, I flipped on the radio. I had just bought it the previous month. It was a Sony and had twin cassette players and excellent reception. Only static came out of the speakers. I leaned over and checked the dial. It was tuned to my favorite station, 98.7, rock until you go to heaven. Crazy Harry should have been greasing up the airways by now, I thought. I fiddled with the dial. The static continued. I switched to another station. More fuzz. Damn, I muttered. He told me it was the better model. I turned off the radio. My coffee was ready. I take it black, with both sugar and sweet and low. I mixed myself a powerful hit and sat in my dad's favorite chair in the living room, sipping and thinking. Our house would be nothing to film a movie inside. We had only 2 box bedrooms and 1 bathroom that would probably be reincarnated as an outhouse. Still, it was cozy enough. My dad painted in oils in his spare time, when his back wasn't killing him from all his driving. He favored mountain scenes copied from National Geographic photographs. His works covered the walls around me. But the silence, the emptiness, it seems to seep into me from the floor. I couldn't explain it. I set my coffee down and walked over and turned on the TV. Static. Fuzz. Like the radio, I whispered. I flipped through the channels. Nothing. Oh no, I said. Suddenly, I was afraid. Afraid of nothing, that most awful of fears, especially when nothing is all there is. I strode over to the window and looked out. I watched for 5 minutes and not a single car drove by. My fear deepened as the silence around me seemed to expand. The only sound was the faint rustling of the wind on the walls of the house, the desert sand scratching at the paint, like long nails craving an invitation inside. I sat back in my dad's favorite chair and picked up the phone. The dial tone was reassuring. I dialed Pepper's number. It rang and rang. I called a friend at school, Sandy Hankins. There was no answer. I called the local supermarket. It was open 24 hours a day. Nobody home. I called my best friend, Susan Duggan, in Florida. I got her parents' answering machine. I put down the phone and thought of the deserted gas station. Even before we got into town. "Where is everybody?" I asked out loud. No one answered me. I almost screamed right then. I would have, but the silence wouldn't allow it. The silence was too strong. I got up and ran out of the house. The block was deserted. I went to my neighbors, the Hollands. They had 2 hyperactive kids and a dog that barked at its own barking. I banged on the door. "Hello? Is anyone there? Please answer if you're there. It's an emergency." I was talking to a door. I ran to my neighbors on the other side, the Blaines. No kids or animals, but 2 loud people who got up early and let the rest of the world know it. I called to them too, and injured their front door with my fists, but they were definitely not home. It seems no one was. What did I do next? I began to move toward the center of town, 6 blocks away. I stopped at other houses, even peeked my head in a couple, but I quit doing it very soon. There was no one around. The sight of a corpse would have been welcome to me right then. A skeleton sitting at a kitchen table with a fresh cup of steaming coffee. Sure, let me meet him. I'm desperate. Anything, even a goldfish. But I was alone. I stumbled into the town square and collapsed on the lawn beside the statue of David Fitzpatrick, the town's founding father. He was covered with birdlime as usual, but there were no birds. They must have all flown away into a sky above mine. "Help!" I finally screamed. My voice echoed against the watching buildings until it became an echo of an echo and was lost. I buried my face in my hands, thankful that they at least had not deserted me. Tears filled my eyes and I cried, but only quietly and to myself because there was no one there to share them with. I was not merely confused, I was lost. Lost in a town I had lived in all my life. Time did not go by, that would have been a joke. Time had already packed its bags and left town. But something passed, and then after a while, I became aware that someone was standing above me. I raised my eyes. I had to look into the sun to see him, just like the first time, just as I looked into the rising sun when I spotted the lone hitchhiker on the empty highway. "Pepper," I said. "Where is everybody?" he asked. Chapter 3. Pepper told me his story. His aunt and uncle had been gone when he'd gone into the house. The fact hadn't disturbed him greatly, but when he had lain down to sleep, the creepy feeling he felt at the gas station wouldn't go away. He got up and called me, but I must have already been out and pounding on the neighbors' doors. He called a few friends, but no one was home. He didn't turn on the radio or TV, but started walking toward the center of town as I had done, calling out for anyone to answer. Finally, of course, he found me. We sat on a bench in the center of the town square as we caught up on each other's stories. To say there was a feeling of unreality to our situation would have been like saying the sun was hot. We sat on a bench in the shade, but we were perspiring. Both our shirts were stained with cold sweat. "Why would everyone leave?" I asked. Pepper grimaced and sat quietly thinking. "The only thing I can figure is there must have been some kind of evacuation. Maybe there was a toxic spill in the area. The National Guard could have been brought in last night. They might have cleared everyone out. If that was the case, they'd have put up roadblocks." He nodded. "I know, but it's the only explanation that makes any kind of sense. There were people here at 9 last night when we left. Now they're gone. There must be a reason. There must be something bad here. I think we better get the hell out of here." But I told you how I called Susan in Florida. Even she wasn't home. It's like everybody's disappeared. Are you saying the whole world's deserted? He asked. Maybe. That's ridiculous. What's happened here is ridiculous. I stood. I want to call more people in more places. He got to his feet. I don't think that's a good idea. Let's just get out of here. We can call people from Foster. The word hit me like a sharp spike. I'm not going back there. He was taken back by my reaction. I didn't mean rocks. I know, I said quickly. Then I shrugged. This is not my day. First I go for an abortion, then I end up in the Twilight Zone. I pointed to Mike's electronic repair next to Baskin-Robbins. Look, let's make a couple of calls. Maybe we can reach someone who'll tell us what's happening. Pepper hesitated. Fine, but let's make it quick. The door to Mike's shop was locked. Pepper paused for a second, glanced up and down the block, and then kicked in the glass beside the door. I jumped at the sound. Pepper reached inside and undid the latch. We'll have to tell Mike we did this, I said. I wanted to add, if we ever see him again. We stepped inside. Mike had lived in Salem 100 years, and there was nothing he couldn't fix. Radios, TVs, refrigerators, as long as they didn't have any microchips in them. Mike hated any silicon wonders. He called them micro-shits. His shop was simple, crammed with the internal organs of modern conveniences. An oil-stained phone sat on his cluttered workbench. Pepper picked it up. Who should we call first? He asked. Information? Seriously? I am serious, I said. If they don't answer, call the operator. He did as I requested. Information was not there. He tried the operator. The same thing. He slammed down the phone. There must be something wrong with the lines, he said. Did you get a normal dial tone? I asked. Yes, I got a normal dial tone. I reached for the phone. I want to call my grandmother in Portland. She hasn't left her house since I was born. I dialed the number from memory. It rang forever, although I kept praying for it to stop. But I couldn't take the phone away from my ear. Pepper finally had to put the receiver down. He was studying me as if he was worried I was about to lose my mind. He had every right to be concerned. Rocks? He began. There's no one there, I whispered. The world's empty. Don't talk like that. There's been an evacuation of the area. The National Guard... Screw the National Guard, I interrupted. He grabbed me. Your grandmother's probably still asleep. Call someone else. No. Do it, damn you. We're not alone. Yes, we are, a voice said behind us. Chapter 4. In walked Stan Reese. Short, chubby, 18-year-old Stan surprised me so bad I almost peed my pants. Child prodigy. Probable valedictorian of our class. Good old Stan. Ask him a question about math or science, and if he didn't know the answer, there was none. His brown eyes were huge because his glasses were thick. He came in and sat on Mike's favorite stool. His pleasant, plump face was a haven of sanity. He scratched at his dirty blonde hair and sniffled. I hope I didn't scare you guys, he said calmly. I let go of Pepper and moved to Stan, hugging him so tightly I could have hurt him. But Stan didn't complain. He wasn't only smart, he was cool. He was the rarest of intellectuals. He never acted superior. He smiled briefly as I let him go. He reset his glasses on his nose. It's too bad it took the end of the world for Roxanne to give me a hug, he said. I'm so glad to see you, I exclaimed, messing up his hair. I knew Stan fairly well. Our junior year, I took algebra, and because I had the bad habit of ditching class every other day, the teacher assigned Stan to tutor me. Stan wasn't in my class, of course. He was already on his second semester of college calculus, but he was doing some kind of work-study project. I saw him twice a week for an hour, and in that time he taught me more than a teacher could have ever taught me. I ended up getting a B in the class and taking Stan out for ice cream afterward to thank him. He really liked ice cream. He had a banana split and a malt. He had a rather major problem with his weight. Pepper stepped forward. We had never talked about Stan, but I suspected Pepper hardly knew him. What do you mean, the end of the world? Pepper asked. Has there been a nuclear war? Not that I'm aware of, Stan said. Then what are you saying? Pepper demanded. Everybody in the world seems to have disappeared, Stan replied. That's insane, Pepper sneered. Tell me about it, Stan said. He sat for a moment without speaking. We all did. When Stan spoke next, his voice was curiously intrigued, as if our situation were nothing but a fascinating scientific problem, which I suppose it was in a way. I'm a shortwave operator, he said. Have been for years. I usually talk to 3 buddies of mine in Europe every Saturday morning. There's one each in France, Germany, and Switzerland. The one in France is a 30-year-old woman who's been teaching me French for the last 6 months. Well, To make a long story short, I tried to get in touch with them this morning. I couldn't get any of them. I checked out my equipment. It was perfect. I tried getting other people I talked to occasionally. A guy in Australia with chronic insomnia. A priest in India. These guys are almost always on the airwaves. I got zip. I began to scan all the bands. I was receiving fine, but nobody was transmitting. I turned on a normal radio, a TV. I did the same thing, I exclaimed. What did you get? Stan asked. Static, I said. Fuzz? Stan nodded. That's what I got. I don't believe any of this, Pepper protested. Stan pointed. Turn on Mike's TV right there. That one's his. It's not in for repair. Pepper did as he was told. He got a screen of fuzz no matter how many times he flipped a channel. He snapped it off. It proves nothing, he said, angry. It proves a lot, Stan said. All the networks and local stations have suddenly stopped broadcasting. Why? I asked. I don't know why, Stan said. But you're Mr. Brain, Pepper said. You get all the good grades. Use your brain now. Give us something. Stan sighed. My first reaction would be to say that there has been a major EMP high in the atmosphere. That's an electromagnetic pulse. A multiple megaton warhead detonated at, say, 40 miles altitude could knock out all our electronics. Then we are at war, I moaned. Not that I know of, Stan repeated. An EMP would have killed this TV here, and my shortwave, and your radio. We wouldn't be getting fuzz, we'd be getting nothing. Plus, an EMP wouldn't explain the disappearance of everybody. Then give us another explanation, Pepper said. What about a toxic spill or something like that? Stan spread his hands. I got up this morning, and after realizing that there was no one on my radio or TV, I went to my parents' bedroom. There was no one in their bed. There was no one in the house. If my parents had been evacuated in the middle of the night, don't you think they'd at least awaken me? Ask me if I wanted to come? Was their bed messed up? I asked. Stan nodded. Good question. Yes, it was unmade. My mother never left a bed unmade more than 10 minutes in her whole life. I think they were in bed when they left. When they left where? Pepper asked. I don't know, Stan repeated. I felt faint and couldn't think clearly. All the rules had been changed. Reality had fallen asleep at the wheel and driven off the road. I had to sit down. Pepper pounded his leg in frustration. We can't just sit here, he said. We have to find out what's happened. I say we get a car and drive to another town. We might have to do that eventually, Stan said, but I wouldn't start our investigation by traveling. Why not? Pepper asked. What's in another town that's not here? Stan asked. More people? Maybe, maybe not, but we already know for a fact that most of the people on Earth are gone. I can tell if a radio or TV's been damaged. There is nothing wrong with mine. I doubt there is anything wrong with Roxanne's. That means that no one in any part of the world is transmitting, and that means its effect is not localized to here. But we have to find more people, Pepper protested. We may find more people in Salem itself, Stan said. We should look here first. People freak out when the unexpected happens. What's happened today is about as unexpected as you can get. If we go driving from town to town, we might end up getting shot at by someone. Pepper considered. He always had strong opinions, but logic worked wonders on him, and everything Stan had said made sense. All right, Pepper said finally. We'll stay here for now. But what do we do here? Stan paced in front of us. If there are other people in town, what would they do first, once they discovered what had happened? They'd probably go through all the steps we have, I said. Then they'd leave town. What would they do just before they left town? Stan asked. Steal a good car and a sack full of cash, Pepper said. Ah, Stan raised an approving finger. He had probably known the answer before asking for our input. We all want easy money. What a time to get it. Let's go to the bank, I said. Right, Stan said, agreeing with me. Let's go, Pepper said, anxious to do something, anything. There were 2 banks in Salem on opposite corners of the town square. We went to the small one first, a first interstate. Our break-in tactics had lost their subtlety already. Pepper simply kicked the door in. We looked around and called out. No one. The next bank, a Security Pacific, was Salem's main center of commerce. I had been in it only a couple of days earlier, when I had withdrawn my half of the abortion money. The teller had asked if I was going to use the cash for a present or for a vacation weekend. I said, yeah, right, both. Give me the cash and mind your own business. It was a big bank, no doubt full of big bucks. As we approached, we could see the front door had already been smashed in, which made us hurry toward it. Stan stopped us before we could enter, though. Whoever was here has probably already come and gone, Stan said. But maybe we should call out before we enter. We don't want to surprise anybody. Good idea, Pepper said. He stuck his face close to the hole in the front door. Hello, he called. He got no response. We must have missed them, he muttered, pulling the door open. A glass panel beside the door suddenly shattered into lethal-looking shards. A loud roar accompanied the display. Instinctively, we threw ourselves to the sides of the door, pressing against the brick walls. I was alone on my side, the left side. You should have yelled louder, Stan told Pepper. Or not yelled at all, Pepper grumbled. Are you all right, Rox? Yeah, I guessed. But maybe we should stop by the bank later. A warm, sticky sensation on my right leg got my attention. I looked down and was amazed to see a dark stain growing through my blue jeans. I've been shot, I whispered. We've got to get out of here, Stan said, seeing my wound. That son of a bitch, Pepper swore. Can you walk, Rox? Gingerly, I probed my wound. I had never been shot before. I wanted to be cool like the characters on TV, and just rip off a piece of my shirt and bandage my wound on the spot. But I suddenly felt nauseous. I had to brace myself against the wall just to keep from falling over. I think I've just been grazed, I managed to get out. I don't think there's a bullet in my leg. I'm going over to her, Pepper said to Stan. Be quick, Stan advised. Pepper leapt across the distance between us. It was a good thing. A second and third shot disintegrated what was left of the glass. Pepper put a supporting arm around me. I'll carry you, he said. I brushed him off. No, I can walk. Let's just get out of here. I'm getting a rifle and coming back and wasting this guy, Pepper hissed. He grabbed my hand and nodded in the direction of some buildings out of the line of sight of the ruined bank doors. Let's do it. We were just preparing to launch our getaway when a voice called out from inside the bank. Who's there? It said. Pepper was enraged. Who's there? He screamed. We're here. Who are you? And why are you shooting at us? There was a long pause. Is that you, Pepper? Yeah, Pepper yelled back. Who are you? It's Helter. Helter Skater, better known as Helter Skelter, wanted to be a bad dude. He wanted it so bad, and took on so many of the trappings of toughness, that he had ended up as a topic of light gossip. He smoked, he drank, he had tattoos, all the basics. But he also committed at least one significant act of violence a month. He did it with such regularity, it was as if he marked it off on a calendar beforehand. In March, he got in an argument with the football quarterback at school, and ended up breaking the guy's jaw. He was suspended for the act, but only for a couple of days, because the quarterback had thrown more interceptions and touchdowns the previous season. In April, Helter got in a fight with a biker at a local bar. It was true the biker had seen better days in the 1950s and was alone and very drunk, but the way Helter told the story, he had taken on a gang of Hell's Angels with only his fist to defend himself. Now it was a May star date, and he had just shot Roxanne Wells in the leg. Are you done shooting at us? Pepper called out, furious. Helter was bigger than my boyfriend, and obviously more practiced at the violent arts, but I suspected if push came to shove, Pepper would have torn Helter's head off. Yeah, you can come in, Helter called. I'm coming in all right, Pepper said, and kicked the door open. Stan and I chased after him. I was still bleeding, but it was going to have to wait. If there were only 4 people left alive on the planet, it wasn't going to do for one to get killed. Pepper, I called after him. Don't start anything. I don't have to start it, he snapped. You're bleeding. That's a hell of a start already. Where are you, you yellow bastard? Helter was, of course, back beside the vault, where all the money was kept. He had obviously blown the lock off the vault because his black windbreaker pockets were fat with hundreds, and his pants pockets bulged with rolled green wads. He carried a mean rifle in his left hand, and I believe it was still smoking. He did not point it at Pepper as my boyfriend strode up, but he shook it a little. Tucked in his belt was a Colt .45 revolver. Don't mess with me, Pepper, he said. I didn't know it was you out there. You just decided when you woke up this morning that you would shoot at anything that moved, huh? Pepper demanded, momentarily halting his advance. If I wanted to hit you, Helter snapped back, you'd be dead. I raised my hand. Excuse me, my leg is bleeding. How come I'm not dead? Oh, Helter mumbled, chagrined. I could never decide whether he was attractive in a crude way or just plain ugly. His hair was blonde, plowed down to the roots, and his deeply tanned face was surprisingly featureless. He had 2 expressions, anger or vague confusion. I suppose he could look frightened, too, but I hadn't been around him all that much. He was a senior like the rest of us, but he moved in different circles. I should kick in your face, Pepper said. Helter put his attitude back on. What's stopping you? I think it's the fact that you're holding two deadly weapons, Stan observed. Helter scowled. What are you doing here? Closing out my account, Stan replied. Then he did a very brave thing. He stepped forward and plucked the rifle out of Helter's hand. He didn't touch the revolver, however. Helter was so amazed that he didn't even try to stop him. Stan set the rifle on a nearby seat, adding, Let's kiss and make up and get down to business, all right, guys? It's all right with me, Helter said, trying to act bored. Just our luck he should have been left, Pepper muttered. He turned to me. I want to look at your leg. Are you in pain? I nodded to all the money in the area. Yeah, but I feel a lot better knowing that we're rich. Pepper had me sit and felt my cut. He decided that the bullet had just grazed me. He ripped off a part of his shirt and tied it tightly over the wound. The bleeding began to slow immediately. Are you strong enough to walk to the drugstore? Pepper asked. Sure, I said. It's only next door. I can give you a piggyback ride, Helter offered, guilty at last. No thanks, I said politely. I really wasn't that mad at him. Could I have a piggyback ride? Stan asked Helter hopefully. What a group, Helter growled. At the drugstore, Pepper made the other two stay up front at the cash register while I sat down in the back beside the prescription drugs. I slipped down my pants so he could clean and bandage my wound. It was kind of romantic. They do this in westerns all the time, I said, as he taped the gauze to my thigh. I could tell he was enjoying the sight of my legs. They were good ones. I don't remember any drugstores in westerns, he said. That's true. I reached down and held his hands. His eyes met mine. If I was looking for strength, it was there for the taking. The only thing that made our situation bearable was that we were together. What are we going to do? I asked. First, we have to figure out what's happened, and then I guess we'll do the right thing. He glanced in the direction of the others. We're lucky we have Stan with us. The guy's sharp. You like him. I'm glad. He really is a wonderful person. But be nice to Helter as well. We'll get nowhere if we're at one another's throats. I'll tolerate him. I will not be nice to him. Pepper finished with my leg, and we rejoined the others. We hardly had a chance to catch up on Helter's story, and his ours, when blonde, beautiful Leslie Bell strolled through the door. Her eyes were dry, but both her cheeks were streaked. She had on bright blue pajamas and no shoes. I have a splitting headache, she said flatly. Any of you guys got an aspirin?